Hey everyone, welcome back to Tales of Recovery. This is your host, Gris, and today I'm here with my friend Lunita Velasquez, back on the show, and we've been wanting to get together for so long now to just come on here and share, well, all the goodness and the badness that we've been living through, but one of the major topics that we really are bringing today is what world are we hopefully creating and leaving for our children, right? Because Lunita's about to give birth to your third baby. And so thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah. And I guess the main thing, because Lunita and I just sat through this really beautiful reading that she did for me. And I feel beyond grateful to be in a place where, gosh, like you just said to me, like, well, everything's kind of flowing. Like, you're in a space of empowerment and gratitude, but to allow this gift that is kind of happening in my life. One of the things you mentioned to me was to soften that survival mode. Like, I can't be having fun and enjoy my life if I'm in constant survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like our kids, even though we're not in a war per se, are in the survival mode. And beyond our kids is, what are they breathing in our house and our spaces?
Mm-hmm.
And so what are we doing as mothers? And even if you don't have a child, like, we are still mothers,
Mm-hmm.
or parents, or whatever we are, to soften the survival mode, like, to work through it. What are we hoping to work on
Mm-hmm.
as part of just, and I hate the word healing, but, like, what are we paying attention to that needs to be paid attention to? Because I know that you are moving, or you already moved to this beautiful space outdoors where there's chickens and animals, and your little girls are out there waking up at 6 in the morning, feeding the chickens. And it's like, that is like the dream,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like that's what's going to connect us and our children, which are the future, to a better, or to a more calm, fulfilling miracle of life, because that's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I'm learning right now is adjusting from living in the city to living in a rural place, from living in a house to living in a tiny house. Is there's so many steps from survival mode, dysregulation, to not being in survival mode and being regulated and enjoying, waking up in the mountains. All the steps in between are regulating the body, regulating the nervous system, adjusting to what's changed, like taking that moment to say, like, my kid's acting really shitty right now and it's annoying. And then pausing for a second, and then I realize that I'm completely dysregulated. I'm giving off this energy that's frantic or grumpy or edgy. I'm uncomfortable. And so my kid is in my field. I believe our babies, our kids are tucked into our field, our aura, until they're about 12 years old. Mm. And so my kids are still feeling and feeding off of my energy very directly. And so before I can expect this, like, perfect flow of, like, oh yes, they're waking up to feed the chickens, but I'm still, raising my voice and rushing them to school, it's like, what has to change so that I can also be in the same flow of allowing them to be kids, yeah, allowing them to be spacious. I don't feel, when I don't feel connected to that kid spaciousness within me, how can I hold space for them to have that? And so we're having a bunch of these kids that are 10 years old and suffering from anxiety, or having all of these mental health issues, or unhappy. They just don't really want to be here. And it's so sad and it's so scary, but I think it's indicative of two things. One, these kids are really woke. They know what's going on. They feel what's going on. And if it feels hopeless to us, it's going to feel hopeless to them. And then the other piece is that I feel collectively we forgot how to hold space for the magic and the mystery that they come here for. We come here for that. And if it's not here, it doesn't feel very promising, right? to think of the future.
Yes, and you say, okay, first of all, thank you for saying that, because, and if anybody here is listening and it's like, what do you mean by regulated? Well, you know, that the nervous system is calm enough and not in survival mode that you're feeling, you know, it's like a car, right? If you don't put the oil in it or the carburetor's fucked up or whatever, then the car's not going to drive well. So you take it to the shop, everything, or like a brand new car. So being regulated kind of translates into your car, your body being in a space where it's riding smoothly. The tank is full of gas. The oil light is fine. And there's windshield wiper fluid, you know, and it's like everything is cool.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned the 10-year-olds and how your kids are in your field until you're 12. I could tell you this. I saw my 21-year-old daughter yesterday. Well, she'll be 21 tomorrow or a couple days. And I walked into her house, you know, and we went out. We were going to go get some food. And she was so, like, anxious, right? Like, angry at me, saying things. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not really doing anything. Like, what the fuck is... And so I know now that, you know, as soon as they turn teenagers, I've turned into a plant. I'm like a plant mom. I'm just sitting here. I'm a plant observing, right? Stop reaching them on. And so... And she said to me, it's because your energy is making me feel like this. Your presence, she said, as soon as I saw you, it makes me like anxious because my room isn't cleaned up and you're going to say this about the house and this and this and that. And I was like, fuck. You're carrying my unregulated energy from like 10 years ago.
100%.
And it was like, oh God, what could I do? I just, you know, I don't even say anything anymore. I turned into a bigger plant, right? I'm like, I'm sorry, would you like a hug? And some food? Because maybe we need to eat. And yes, after she ate, you know, I feel so much better now. The whole mood shifted. But part of what we're leaving our children, we're not doing anything for them. When we become better and notice.
That's what I've realized. You know, it's like I'm not actually leaving them anything. Hopefully, other than not leaving them much. See, like, I would rather leave my girls a clean platform to launch their lives, or like fresh wings, right? I don't want them to carry the bruised, dusty, incomplete, and doubtful wings of the lineage, right? I want them to spread their wings in their own way. And like that wing analogy is cheesy and we use it a lot, but that's how it really feels. Like it's like I'm not really giving them anything other than healed ancestral medicine.
Yeah.
That they can dose and take when and how they need it, if they need it, when they want it. I think it's a lot less about us thinking that. It's a little arrogant, you know, to think that we're the ones who are going to leave them something or planning the whole garden of their life for them. No. What we can leave them is our own healing, our own empowerment, our own liberation. I mean, I think liberation is the biggest word. If I was going to leave my daughters something, it would be their own freedom. Their own freedom. And so, yeah, it's I don't think it's so much about leaving them something as it is about emancipating ourselves from our own shit.
Yeah, and it's in the body. It lives so profoundly in the body because for so long I thought, okay, we're leaving them, you know, beliefs or a legacy of, I don't know, man. whatever. I just sometimes I have to watch it because I think everything is so much bullshit, and then I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
pero también this was what made you, so balance
Right.
it out. Don't talk
Right.
too much shit about your
Yeah.
own family, but that sense of energetic vibration in the body, because we come here, and we just talked about this before we started the podcast about how. Do you know how long we waited to get in these bodies and have this juicy experience, right?
So long.
And so then we're here freaking the fuck out and transferring that anxiety, that nervousness, that craziness onto the kids. And one of the things you mentioned was about this like Isis, like this powerful, bruja energy that lives in my body, in my lineage. That has had to really fight and be in anger mode because so much oppression and so much not understanding, even from my part, what the hell I'm doing.
Right, exactly. And so there is, there's the part of looking at it, and I'm an Aries. I'm really good at calling myself out. I'm really good at holding myself accountable. Fine, right? But what about the grace, right? The grace has come up so much throughout my pregnancy because it's been a pretty gnarly up leveling of all this shadow, all this stuff. And one of the things that I've learned is that sometimes the work is actually just learning how to be good to myself, how to speak to myself with love, how to hold myself in grace. Such a beautiful word, right? It's like this unconditional forgiveness. It's an unconditional love. And yeah, there's something really, really beautiful about that. If I could really embody more of that and have my daughters live in some of that vibration, I would feel pretty awesome as a mother, for sure. But what I also wanted to say is there is an honoring that has to happen. I mean, we're both Mexican. I think we both have a similar flavor of the women in our lineage. Strong, powerful women, but also under the thumb of the patriarchy, also completely forgetting their essence, right? And so there's like this aspect of me where when I started doing my ancestral work, where I was so angry, I was so upset, I would cry so much as I started to uncover the layers of the women who came before me, feeling their energy, feeling not only the Spanish whitewashed aspect of my lineage, but starting to feel like the roots of my indigenous blood too, and how that was taken from us and diluted. And amidst all that anger and rage and sadness and heartbreak of seeing what was taken and what was lost, as I kept going, I realized like actually wasn't taken or lost. It was hidden. Yeah. It was protected. It was taken underground so that now on September, whatever it is today, 2021, I could sit here with you and hold it and feel it, and it's safe. It was protected. It wasn't actually destroyed. And so knowing that can be medicine for the parts of me that want to criticize or hide or say like, oh, I'm better than that. Those women didn't know better. No, actually they did everything right so that I could be here now, right? And do this thing because I was entrusted with 3 daughters. Why? Right? 3 daughters, 4 counting my stepdaughter. So 4 daughters. And I'm still kind of in the quest of why Goddess would allow such a thing. I mean, that's quite a project. No, I don't want to say a project. I'm the project.
A responsibility.
There are huge responsibility and a huge honoring of that very thing I've been talking about, right? I've been talking for 5 years incessantly about ancestral worship and rewilding and liberation, and it's like, oh really, Lunita, you that's what you're about? So what are you gonna do about it now that you have 4 women yep, that to teach and to model that for, Yeah.
Well, first of all, you are like a full-on model of grace. I mean, at least to me, I always feel like, oh, so safe when I'm with Lunita, that. And I say that because I think sometimes we don't get told that enough, at least from other women that are our peers. And that whole underground thing is so on point. Like, yes, I remember, okay, one of my first tea with the ancestors that I ever went to was at your house.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember driving over there. I just wanted to hang out with you, but I'm like, whatever, I'm going to this thing. The fuck tea with ancestors? Whatever, whatever. But I'm just going to go be in circle, you know, and then and driving to your house as I was bitching and moaning about this because I was angry at my grandmother. You know, my mom was in there almost dying. My great-grandmother, like, what did you do to my mom? So this whole anger thing, and I'm driving to your house, and I'm trying to put the Spotify song, and it keeps skipping on me and skipping on me until this song comes on that my grandma used to sing.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, what's going on? I said, okay, all right. I'm not, okay, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Those moments of, like, pay attention because this is real. And I remember coming to your house losing it. I mean, I cried. You were like, oh, okay, she's losing her, you know, but it was so impactful. And it began. And how long ago was that? 3 years ago?
Yeah, probably 3 years ago. I never felt like, oh, she's losing it.
No. Maybe that was just igual a mí me daba pena, no? Like my own.
If anything, that's a high compliment when people come to circle and quote unquote lose it. If you lose it in my presence, I'm honored that you trust me with your losing it.
I was crying and crying. I couldn't believe it. And it makes so much sense now. When you're talking about how these things have been hidden or underground, and now it's the work of regulating the body to allow this medicine to come through. Yep. And not have your 21-year-old daughter freak out because you didn't have these techniques or these wisdom, but she was 12 years old or 10 or 9, you know?
Yeah. And it's, you know, I feel like every time we leave our body, right, because we're depressed or anxious or simply just not taking care of ourselves at all or in addiction, whatever, there's no judgment in what I'm sharing. I've been there. I lived in that for 20 years, you know, that's a huge release of our energy and our medicine. And I don't mean in a good way release. It's like a leaky faucet. Mm-hmm. And so if we're not in the body and we're kind of flailing all over the place, or we're always getting high or always getting drunk, or we're just not, we're leaving ourselves behind essentially, right? Yeah. We can continue to choose the wrong partners or the you know, again, addictions. That's leaving ourselves behind. We're not holding ourselves. We're not saying like, hey, Lunita, like, come here. Like, let me make sure you drink water today. Go sit down, have something to eat. Go to sleep, you know? It's like the higher parts of me can't access the embodied alive version of me to take care of her. And so we can't access our wisdom. We can't access our medicine if we're holding these leaky faucets. And so again, the grandmothers, the ancestors, they'll hold it for us. They'll wait. Grace. They'll hold it. She's not ready. She's not okay. She needs time. And it's with love, right? It's not a punishment. They know when we're ready for more. And sometimes when they know we're ready for more and we get it all at once, then we're like, this is too much. This is too much. But we are ready. We are okay. And going back to the kiddos and what you shared about your daughter, my oldest daughter, Olivia, is going to be 12 this next month. But she's more like 15, 16. She's the most ancient soul I've ever met, ever. And I've met some old souls. I'm an old soul, you know, but I mean, she's just like, I don't know where the heck she came from. But so she's always kind of had an advanced practice of life. And in her short life so far. And for some reason, we bicker a lot. We butt heads a lot. And I never really understood why. I just thought that that's how it was. She's intense. I would always say that. She's intense. And recently, a few people, her dad and my mother and a couple others, mirrored to me that Olivia is exactly like me. And so when I sat with that, I was like, I went outside of myself and I looked at both of us and I'm like, oh my gosh, cut from the same cloth. It's the same thing. And I thought, oh my gosh. See, I still haven't learned grace with myself. So when I feel the same frequency that I am, I have no patience for it. And so that has been such a huge teaching for me in just like literally the last 2 weeks of what I'm holding in myself, how I talk to myself, how I hold myself, how I really feel about myself truly deeply is being mirrored in the lack of patience I have for my daughter, who is just as strong and mighty and loudspeaker as me. I mean, she doesn't back down.
Yeah.
But why is that okay for me to teach and talk about it, right? And to like say like, let's do it, let's get free. But then when I have this little mini goddess in my house, I have the hardest time. And it's so humbling as a mother to be like, whoa, I've been approaching that one the wrong way. Yeah. She actually needs my softness. She needs my tenderness. She has the fire for herself. She has the intensity for herself. I do not need to hold that. Yeah. And so that's just an example of the intelligence of this relationship, right? For both of us, for whatever she's here to do and what I agreed to hold for her, you know, is a safe space. The safe space I didn't have.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because
of the lack of compassion. Mm-hmm. Now that's a big word that keeps coming up is compassion. I guess it's grace. Yeah. Kindness. Mm-hmm. But yeah, how do we talk into ourselves? Because that's exactly, so yeah, you're mirroring. Which is, I mean, that's like the biggest, I always tell my kids, you know, you guys are my teachers.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know anything. Mm-hmm. Like, to be honest, I feel like we're all 7 years old here. Mm-hmm. But I know I have a responsibility if I'm older than them or if I've been in this journey longer to calm myself, mm-hmm. to talk nicely to myself, to be kind to myself, because that's, you know, that's really the simplest thing that gives 150 million% change.
Right. Like if I think about what does maturity mean, you know, like that word, like what does that mean, mature? And to me, one of the ways it shows up in life is mature means that in this moment, say I'm dysregulated or I'm grumpy or I'm angry, in this moment, maturity or wisdom can show me that I can check in and shift gears and choose how I'm showing up in that space. I feel like maturity has to do with how do I affect the spaces around me? Yeah. Not just my children, but anyone, anything. Having enough self-acknowledgement to stop and say, you're actually not adding much to this situation, or you're making this worse. Yeah. And kind of checking in and being like, I am the adult in the room. Like, my daughters might be magicians and I'm just a person, right? But I'm still the adult. I can still recalibrate the way that I'm showing up and the way that I'm affecting the spaces that they're in.
Yeah, like put a little bit of brakes, mm-hmm. and then say, okay. Yeah. Yeah, because I think a lot of times me, you know, I know so many things. I've done all these years of like different experiences and techniques for calming the body and working, whatever, doing the work. But then the software is still not upgrading all the time. Yeah. There's like, where the fuck is the Wi-Fi?
Right.
Give me the new download, you know? And so just being aware of, I mean, and even yesterday it kind of happened. I mean, I saw her really freaking out and I had to really put the brakes on mm-hmm. I wanted to be like, what the heck, man? I just showed up. We're going to go to eat. Like, but it's just like, oh, noticing that they are going through their own thing. Mm-hmm. And yes, I probably have a great part in that. me, my mom, the grandma, whatever. But just like I have to figure it out, she has to figure it out.
Exactly.
And right now, I turn into a plant.
I love that. That is such a good metaphor for what mothering might look like later. I definitely can't be a plant yet.
Yeah, you're
My
so
kids still,
little.
yeah, they still need reminders to brush their teeth and brush their hair, but I love that, just observe but see, what does a plant do in a space? It gives off oxygen, nutrition, light,
Grounding.
So that's actually a really, really powerful and perfect analogy of how we can mother our teenagers and our adult children in the future. Because, just be a plant.
Yeah. And then go out and hug a tree. as a woman, as a mother, as a person who's the one holding the... one of the other things you said is I think it's so important to mention, okay, what word are we leaving for our kids? Energetically. Right? Like you said, they're in your field until about 12 years old. That field that we hold, nobody teaches that in school. Like, maybe now there's a little more because there's so much information out there and your kids are watching quantum physics videos and doing all these things that maybe they don't teach them at school. I don't know.
Right. Hopefully.
Maybe. And then, you can still teach it at home. It might not be so mainstream, but that's the key of like, without sounding woo-woo, no, it's science. It's like, it's who we are. It's who we are. It's our creation. So how do you manage that vibrational energy, that field of love? We can call it energy. I call it love, whatever, in order to stay, smooth, like the oceans, like navigating, coming back and forth and allowing for that. I don't know, that space for the kids to be able to feel safe.
They can't until we're safe, It's like, I think back to my childhood with, two parents that loved me and have my back still to this day. I mean, no shade on them. They did the best they could.
Yeah.
But my father was very dysregulated, still very dysregulated. And so me being this soft, pliable, porous little girl who was, has whatever channel turned on since then, I was always trying to regulate him.
Yeah.
And obviously it didn't work because I was a child and he was a grown man in his grown man experience. And so what happened was that growing up, I continued to try to regulate people. And it wasn't to regulate them to help them. I was trying to regulate people to help myself feel safe. Yeah. And so then that led to codependency in relationships, partners that needed saving, I'm not the first or the last. There's a lot of us out there. And some people like to call this being an empath, right? And so, after I heal the codependency, after I learned to mind my own energy, mind my own business, then, I can say that I'm an empath, and that does help me in my work, and that does help me connect with people. I can completely go into the room of someone's heart with their consent and sit there with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's really important to remember as empaths or highly sensitive people or whatever keyword feels good to you, is that a lot of the times we develop these skills to keep ourselves safe. If I can make sure you're okay and you're not going to freak out, then I can be okay. And there's a healer and a therapist named Luis Mojica from Holistic Life Navigation who I respect a lot, who I've learned from. And he talks about this a lot. So it's not an original thought that I'm sharing. But I really felt seen by that. Like, duh. Like, I developed these super skills to keep myself safe. And so now I think of my daughters. And sometimes if I'm having a really hard time, or in the past when I've been going through really heavy heartbreak and things like that, I would notice them try to regulate me. Yeah. And I'd be like, that's when I'd be like, hold on a second. That's not your job. And I would tell them, Mommy's a little sad, but don't worry, I'll be okay. It's not your job to try to make me feel better. Just, let's hang out. Mm-hmm. Because that feeling of that lack of safety I've carried in my blood and in my guts this whole time in my life, this whole time, because it's like you say, it's that it's in our bodies. What we leave for them maybe is what we leave in our body. Like what's really embodied is maybe what we can leave our kids. And that's actually proven by science now with epigenetics and somatic therapies. It's like we house this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, for example, like this baby in my belly right now, what imprints does she receive from the way that I walk and live? And, when she's born and she's tucked into my body and feeding from my body, I mean, how could we not be affected by our mothers in such a direct way?
Oh, yeah. No, the mothers are where it's at. I mean, and it's I love to be able to like kind of step back and understand where some of these tendencies come from. So I love that you said you're trying to regulate. Your father wasn't a regulated person. Well, neither was my grandmother. And so I always, when you're able to notice that, okay, they're not regulated, so we're trying to help them regulate. And now people call it people pleasing. Right? You're trying to please them because then you'll be safe. And so I think it just makes more sense. It's so much more clear to see I'm not a people pleaser. I'm trying to regulate because this is a tendency that I had to do growing up in order to feel not just safe, but maybe beyond safe, seen,
loved,
and loved.
Yeah.
And so I love that you tell your kids, it's okay, Mama's sad, but you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to take care of it. So they are still developing that empathetic mammalian, like, I'm going to help you, but, it's not such a huge responsibility.
There's a difference between, hey, Mama's not feeling good, let's hug her, let's give her a kiss, which is so sweet. They do that, right? But there's a difference between that and taking it into their little bodies and frying themselves and trying to, make me feel better so that the energy in the home can feel good. And so it goes back to what you were saying of, the quantum field, to get more far out and scientific and whatever, is we're always affecting everything.
Yeah, there's like 7 feet of your space is your whole energy field. And then, you think it doesn't affect you. I mean, people walk in the room and you're like, oh God, why is she here? Or like, oh, wow, I'm so glad they're here, and then the other funny thing is, this is your 7 feet thing. And you have to stand 6 feet apart.
That's really funny. I love thinking of everyone in their fields, right?
Yeah.
And the fact, I mean, maybe not right now because of the madness, of the 6 feet and all that. But, I love the visual of everyone walking around with their 7 feet bubble around them. And we're always bumping up on everyone's bubbles. Yeah. Right? And I think that's part of like the tactile, like carnal experience of being human is like, to me, each bubble is an alternate reality. Okay. And so we're always bumping up. Like right now, you and me are sitting next to each other. So like we're both, like our bubbles are bumping. They're touching. and that's just, so and it's funny. And there's also like a really sweet aspect of it. Of when we come into circle, like how powerful that is of all those bodies sitting there. And being human is the sweetest, weirdest, hardest trip ever, right? Like,
it is a trip. It is a trip, and it's I don't know, who Rob Bell is?
Not ringing a bell.
He's a really cool author, super smart guy, and I did this workshop maybe like a month before going to that retreat in Monterrey. One of the things he said is like, I'm just turned 50 or 51, because I think he's 1 year or two older than me. And I'm barely figuring out what I came here for. It's like, damn, I'm 50 and I'm barely figuring it out. Like, and so this journey, one of the things we could do is, which is why I love having you here and talking about it and, podcasting, is talking about our journey to make it maybe not so hard for others.
Yeah.
You know, I have friends that call me and the first half hour is just complaining and complaining and complaining. So I listen. Then I'm like, this is just you're used to this.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you feel comfort to complain.
Yeah.
But it's like, let's go beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you? And yes, there's, huge vibrational energy, whatever. We're going through these, I don't know, the Schumann resonance energetic field, and it's intense. But also, like, we read all the books, we see all the things, come sit in circle. Like, we know that it's not, and I don't know, maybe she does, maybe they don't know. Or maybe we're just the reminders. We're just masters of returning and masters of remembering.
I love that masters of returning, I mean, I think I return so many times a day, especially right now, mothering while super pregnant. Like even last night, I just felt myself just be so impatient. Get to bed and brush your teeth. And like, then I closed, I'm like, good night. I love you. And like close the door of the bedroom. And then I'm like, I literally sat on the bed and I put myself in timeout and I'm like, you're tired. You haven't had water. You probably need a snack. Like me talking to myself.
Yeah.
It's, I had to forgive myself and return to how do I want to show up?
Yeah.
Who am I as a mother? Well, I'm still learning. Well, I'm still imperfect. Well, my kids see my shadow constantly, right? And that's hard. It's not easy. Yeah. It's not easy at all.
No, and I guess also it's like it is what it is, right? Like I had a huge like anxiety attack breakdown 2 weeks ago in Mexico City. I just did a whole podcast about it because even though I'm sitting there on the floor with oxygen, crying, fugly crying, I'm like, take a picture, Nita. This is exactly what we teach. This is trauma. This is ancestral healing.
Exactly.
It was just the altitude and walking down memory lane and with my mom and the whole thing. But as I laid there, and yes, it came out in Spanish. I got a couple of messages. The English one is coming. I'm going to say the same story in English. But what happened was going through my body was the grief, of, yes, all this childhood tension and holding and fear and survival and just allowing it to flow, but also a lot of understanding like, okay, Mom, you had 3 kids under 7. You were losing your mind.
Yeah.
You probably said, brush your teeth, go to bed, close the door, you know? And I don't think she maybe had the practice of saying, maybe I need a snack. Maybe I should have some water. I could probably have gone to yoga.
Right.
And so giving ourselves a break too. Like we're trying to leave a better world for our kids, but also
we're still in it too with all our stuff. Yeah. And I love that you share that because I feel like, I mean, all of my closest friends are healers, right? And so we talk about the things that we go through.
Yeah.
And it's like, if your healer hasn't gone through some serious shit, maybe don't fully trust them. Because how do you know?
Yeah.
Like
you
how
just took the certification.
How can I talk about being a compassionate mother if I don't have to learn that lesson all day, every day, right? If I'm already perfect, how can I teach it?
Yeah.
How can I don't teach the things I'm naturally good at.
Yeah.
I teach the things that I've had to work for. I teach the things that I'm in school for.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's how it is for all of us. I think we've talked about this in past podcasts. It's like we're the ones that are in it. And then everything we offer, our classes, our teachings, our podcasts, they're just like letters from the void. Like I'm in it. I'm reporting live from
the shithole.
Pain. I just shared, with everyone listening, I put myself on timeout last night because I wasn't showing up how I wanted to. And the next morning I wake up and I'm like, okay, here we go. We're going to do this again. We're going to try again and just return and return and return. And I hope that my girls can, sit with me when they're 20, 21 and be like, you are so bitchy sometimes, or but then also know, like, they were loved. I tried. I was real.
Yeah.
I say sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I say sorry to my kids.
Saying sorry is so important. Like, not as a repetitive thing, like,
No.
I'm sorry, but when you really
sit there
and feel it, because it's like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember when kids were really, really little, and I went to this intuitive healer dude, and I don't even remember what happened. I was in there. It was like really far away. He was from India. We couldn't really understand each other, but he just sat there and did the thing, and I was going because I had digestive issues. And the whole time he's like, it's your mother, it's your mother. I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, just, you're supposed to heal my stomach.
Yeah, tell me something else. Right? Yeah.
And then letting go, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually, you know, whatever. I leave his house about an hour after the healing, get in the car, and out of the blue, my mom calls me. And I think Paula was 2 or 3 years old because my mom was watching her. And she just calls me and she's like, I just want you to know that I'm really sorry. I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh, I just got chills.
Yeah. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I'm just sorry because, I mean, I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do, and I think I messed up a lot, and, you know, grew up and this and that, and because we didn't really get along the whole time. I mean, I was like this rebel child, and she's trying to do, you know, socialite shit. No, it wasn't working out. But when she said that, I was like, okay. Like, damn, she actually said sorry, which was not the thing.
Right.
You guys know, you know, me and my mom, like, before she died, that was way different. But I'm talking 20 years ago. And then I got home. And I had diarrhea for hours. I couldn't get off the toilet. I was like, that intuitive healer guy. It's the stomach. It's the digestion. Wow. It was my mom. And, like, my digestive issues began to heal. I also did digestive enzymes and other stuff. But, you know, it's emotional.
Yep.
So, yeah, the mothers, I mean, congratulations. Another baby, 4 girls. What a freaking powerhouse.
I mean, I feel lucky and grateful, and it makes sense in, like, this deep, deep way. It's hard to describe it. It's like, you know, the maybe it's the higher me, you know, the wisdom keeper me, who's like, duh. But this me, you know, the 35-year-old Lunita is like, whoa. Whoa. I have a lot of work to do, you know, but then at the same time, it's like I'm so good at the grind. I'm so good at the, like, spiritual gangster, which I even cringe saying that. But kind of, yeah, cool, yeah, like the vibe. I'm really good at that. But I'm not that good at, like, hey, let's just dance. Let's just play. Because that version of me, since a little kid, was always regulating, psychic, tuned in, watching, observing, curious, you know. So I never really learned play.
Fixing, yeah. Exactly.
Like, I've been doing little shamanic work since I was, you know, 5.
I'm going in the closet.
Yeah, light a fire. Right. Yeah. Like, and so now I'm like, ooh, gosh, I actually don't really know how to play.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we all have our version of the thing that we're learning. And so I definitely want to call in more play, and hopefully that can be part of of our new lineage, or not our new. We still carry all of the grandmothers, but maybe the new knot, right? And, like, the new strands that we're weaving together, my daughters and I, of we can remember how to play again, how to take it lightly.
Yeah, how to play and enjoy and be outdoors more, and yeah.
It doesn't always have to be work, you know. It's like, are we addicted to healing? Are we addicted to the grind of it?
Yeah.
Can we stop and enjoy?
Can we just sit?
Yeah.
And just look at nothing?
Yeah.
And not want to get up and do the dishes? Yeah.
Or find the next thing to fix.
Exactly. Yeah, let's do that. That's what we can do for our kids.
The end.
The end.
Go
bye.
Play. Bye.
Understanding. Playing, and I think understanding is what we'll... as we tell stories, I told that story of understanding my mom to my daughter, and hopefully, maybe she's not in that space all the time, but eventually understand
Yeah.
that and play and play.
It'll come for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming here
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
and growing in this community. Because as you're saying, like, oh, these 4 girls and me, and I'm like, yes, you have your sister, you have your mother, you have such a community. So to remind ourselves that we have, gosh, please don't mother alone. I mean, I have my niece who's having a baby, and she's in Palm Springs, and she's 3 months pregnant, freaking out that she's all alone. I'm like, there's got to be other pregnant women around. Go to pregnant yoga. You know, you must create a community.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you don't have your family around. Or maybe even if you have your family around. But to know that, God, it's so much more, I don't know, I just got super nostalgic when you mentioned, like, being in the farm and, you know, go to bed. I was like, oh, I want to be, you know, like a couple of miles down telling you, Lunita, I'll go put your kids to bed. And you sit here, you know, and be in the fire. Like, having that, I think we've lost that. And that's one of the other things that maybe we can bring back.
We have. And I think going back to our mothers and our grandmothers, they didn't have that. Yeah. And I think that broke a lot of that broke their backs and their hearts, you know, of thinking, especially in Mexican culture. I mean, this is a whole other podcast, but like, you as the woman kept the house clean, kept yourself beautiful, your kids neat, your husband happy. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Of course they're going to be angry.
A woman has to do all of that? I mean, I feel like, I feel so grateful that my partner cleans and he puts kids to bed and he folds laundry, and I feel like I'm in a partnership, you know? And so, but that's not the case
for them.
No, gosh, no.
Yeah. So to understand, I guess that's the intention, the prayer for today. Understand, regulate our bodies, connect in community.
Bring back the village.
Bring back the village.
Yeah.
Say you're sorry. Sorry, girls.
Yeah, say you're sorry. I feel like this conversation is not complete. I feel like we can keep coming back to be like, okay, there's more.
Yeah.
We can add more, and we're still in it, you know? It's coming together as we go along.
Yeah. We'll have a regular monthly podcast.
Yeah. How's it going in the land of being a mom?
Of being a mom.
In this wild time.
Wild time. Yeah. Well, we'll do that. We'll be waiting for you. Or I'll come out to your ranch and we'll record there.
That would be great.
Yeah. Thanks for hopping on. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
And we'll see you next time. Please share, subscribe, and send your comments. We love to hear it.